Now if you hadn't had a chance to view the thumbnail, read the title or the description, we're making a simple scratch-built bunker out of corrugated cardboard and tools you can find around your house. Don't forget your scissors, your glue, your granola bar box, your waffle box. Just kidding, we're not sponsored or anything, but we go through them at my house. And then we're going to have ourselves some fun. Now review and make sure that you have your Space Marine for size and scale. Put them up to the thing and make sure it's going to work out for cover. I went ahead and saved us some time and cut out 4 equal pieces of length and width of corrugated cardboard from the granola bar box. But my dumb self decided, hey, I'm not going to go through and measure the actual roof I'm going to use for the building, so here's where I'm doing it now. My plan is to have 2 different long interlocking walls connect with 2 shorter interlocking walls. I got the idea from putting together my Frontiers terrain and some of the other terrain projects I've done in the past using XPF foam, and I thought, you know what? This is something I could do with some corrugated cardboard. So right here what I'm doing is I'm making the shorter walls. They're going to match with the width of my actual roof. And then I have the longer that I'm going to be matching with each other. Going about 1 inch in on each of these, I'm going through and creating the interlocking wall piece. Now I did actually measure for this project, trying to get it as precise or accurate as possible, but you can kind of do rule of thumb or wing it as you go. And this is where I'm sliding all the walls together, and without any glue it's actually a pretty solid structure, and it's working out pretty well to be able to hold up some weight, as you'll see here in a moment. Now this is where I decide, hey, it's time to start adding that roof, and rather than gluing the top, I've decided, hey, I'm actually going to put the roof on the floor. I'm going to glue this to the top of it. Nice and neat. Heck, you could play tic-tac-toe with this thing if you really wanted to. Now it's time to add some pressure, so I decided, hey, I've got this bottle of sprue goo, and I'll try to find some other things to put on top of it. Now what I'm doing here is I'm actually taking some of the offcuts and the scrap bits of cardboard that I had left over, and I'm doing what we're calling adding gribbly bits to my building. Some other YouTubers I had watched explained to me that the more detail you can add, the more you can get away from using sloppy or crappy materials on it, and usually if you add a few more layers to each of those details, it helps it pop just more. There's no real method to my madness here, but I just got to thinking, okay, what kind of things would I want to see on a building? So I knew for sure I wanted to have some kind of sci-fi sliding door and a button to help open that. And then I thought, okay, well maybe we have like an antenna system, or maybe like a different conduit or a generator. I don't know. I just started thinking about some different like panels that I wanted to put on it to just kind of help make it a little bit different. If you want to see a video about how to make different ones of these or how to turn trash into these gribbly bits, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. But otherwise, this is kind of what I did. Now it's time to go through and start cutting my edges a little bit. As you can see here, I went with an angle to kind of give it more of that bunker aesthetic and help it not look like just a weird flat building. I started going through and adding all those gribbly bits and the details to my building itself, just using good old PVA glue. Now the nice part is you want to try and utilize this and move it around and match the bottom of the base of your building. So anything that's going to be touching the bottom, make sure you move it around and get it to where it needs to be before it fully dries. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time peeling it off and making it work. And then from here, I went through and decided to glue the top of it again just to give it that little extra oomph. And as you can see, I added some weights to it too to help keep the pressure on there. I've proven this is a pretty sturdy building. It's a pretty good design, and it functions that if I'm going to be putting some miniatures on top of it, I don't have to worry about it busting through. And this is the completed project with everything all glued together. You can see there's some detail to it, and it's not just plain Jane. I start cutting off some of the different corners, just to help give it a few extra lines and make it look not so, I guess, choppy with the building's roof. Make it look like it was actually built or intended to be together. After chopping the project up a little bit and after the glue is all settled, I decided I'm going to take a Space Marine and just take a look at the box in its entirety and make sure that the building looks like how I'd want it to look. You can add more or less details, it's ultimately up to you, but I recommend doing that step, taking a look at it, imagining before you add any kind of paint to it. Now here I'm just adding a base coat of black craft paint to the entire thing. You may have to add a couple coats to it just because cardboard does like to absorb it, but you want to make sure it gets completely dry so you can move on to dry brushing. And just like my L-shaped ruins kind of tutorial I went through and did for you guys, this one's a very similar paint job. You want to make sure you get that bristle all dry, get it spread out there, don't add too much, don't dab too much, and then just start going from the top and work your way down to the bottom, allowing those natural shadows to show up from where your brush is not hitting right away. Then you want to make sure you hit that roof up. And because that is going to be hitting the top, and it's going to be hit by moonlight or sunlight, you probably want to make sure that you get the full thing covered, but it's okay to have a few extra little dark bits on there just to show where maybe the concrete or, you know, whatever material or rockcrete you might be using is getting a little bit dirty or worn down in places. Now it's time to start adding metallic colors to all of our little gribbly bits to help it stand out and not look like just one big old gray building. If you're wanting to go for a newer, nicer finish, where it's maybe factory made, go with just pure silver. I found that works out pretty well, as I'm going to show in this example here. But chances are, if you're in the grim dark universe, you're probably going to want to make sure you have some rust on those metallics. So I'm adding a little bit of brown to it, similar to how I do with my Necrons. I'm going to apply that to each of my metallic pieces to make it look a little bit more worn and aged and help it fit the environment a bit more. And personally, I like it just because it helps those doors, those buttons, and those gribbly bits pop just that much more against the gray. Now we're moving on to the detailing side, adding some different colors and lights to some of our different buttons to help them pop a little bit more. Now I'm just using red and green for this instance, but you can use whatever colors you want to, and you can add as much as you want. I want to make sure I had the button for the door colored green or red, and then I'm having some extra lights just paint on the rest of the different systems I have across the building. I'm also utilizing these stencils on the top of the roof to help it look a little bit more Imperium. These are from a leftover older project that I did. It's just a simple military number scheme and a pretty jank looking Aquila, but hey, most people usually get it, and it can't be really copyrighted because it doesn't look like the Aquila itself. Here we're adding the wash. It's just an old homemade wash mix that I made. Black Magic Crafts and Eric's Hobby Workshop and a few others. I kind of took their idea, ran with it, and made my own homemade wash using an old jar, some old paints, oils, and water, and some soap. Now you can't really see it because my angle is pretty awful right here. Didn't realize that till after the filming, but I'm just getting right into the cracks of the door. Now, I didn't explain this earlier, but I utilized a pin to actually go over the actual door spot where I wanted that sliding mechanism to be at and indented it. But anywhere that I would say that there is a crevice or an angle or a corner of something, you want to make sure you hit that with the wash to help give it the extra shading. If you want to have it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But your wash just helps add a little bit more aesthetic to your building, just like what I did to the roof here. And with that bombshell, the project's all done. Now you can always add more steps to this process if you want to, spend a little more time on it, or spend less as well. If maybe you don't have a wash or you don't want to do the extra aesthetic pieces, that's totally fine too. Take what you feel actually helps you and benefits you and helps you get into more games a little bit more quick. But the nice part is this bunker fits in quite a few settings and is great for all kinds of different Imperial factions, but also can work as ruined buildings that may be taken over by forces of the Xenos or the Chaos factions. It works in just about every setting, and so hopefully it's just one extra piece you can add into your terrain board builds and just add a little bit more of a tactical gameplay scenario for your games. So until the next time, you guys be good to yourselves, have fun rolling dice, crafting some terrain, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.